Good evening, Simon here, Explosive Action. I'm back for another metal vinyl record update. I've got 8 new items here to take a look at, so let's get into it. Apologies up front if I sound a little nasally. I'm still trying to get rid of the last remnants of a very brutal cold, but that's not going to compare to the brutality, nice connection there, of Triumvir Foul, Onslaught to Seraphim. What a glorious cover and logo. This is the third full length from this band. They're out of Portland, Oregon. Death metal 2-piece following the 2019 very wonderfully titled EP Urine of Abomination. Outstanding. These guys play a very chunky and dark brand of death. Sort of that mid-place to slower speed. I kind of think of them like a slower Titan Blood. It's kind of what I get out of this. Mixed, of course, with things like Dead Congregation. It's kind of overall similar to what Ascended Dead do. So if you're familiar with Ascended Dead, I think you'll find a lot with Triumvir Foul here. It's got like lots of the dive bombs that I love hearing in this kind of stuff. That dark death metal, just squealy dive bombs. Plenty of Covenant era Morbid Angelisms you can hear as well. Very nasty, twisted vocals. Lots of churning guitars, plenty of double kicks. It's everything I like in that dark death metal subgenre. The logo, as I mentioned, which is just outstanding. This was done by Samu Salovara. Hopefully I'm saying that right. A very illegible but completely distinct logo. Like, you know, when you see it, you know who this band is because it's just so unique. There's not much else that looks like that. And he did the Crypts and Phobophilic logos as well. So yeah, you can definitely see Crypts in that. And the album artwork was done by somebody called Abomination Hammer, which is a great name for an artist. He has very similar styles like that he uses on a lot of his work. If you've seen Apparition's album Feel from a couple of years ago, you can sort of see that very wiggly, wormy kind of design that he does there. Really, really good. Very appropriate for this band. Very simple on the back here, just black and white. 35 minutes, 8 tracks, 4 asides, standard stuff. If you like your death metal dark and dense, you're going to like Triumvir Foul. So I don't think they get talked about as much. It's just a simple black record. As some other bands, you know, like your Mortiferums and things like that, I think you hear about more. But you don't hear too much about Triumvir Foul. I like the alternate logo there, which is great. Very, very basic outlay here. Good stuff, but yeah, nothing very basic about the music on here from Onslaught to Seraphim. Definitely check it out. A couple of record updates ago, I spoke about a band called Gargantua. I showed 2 releases from that band that I enjoyed very, very much. They were pretty new band to me. I hadn't heard of them. I just listened to them quickly before picking them up in a bulk order from Amorfati Records. And at that time, I noted that 2 members of Gargantua, who go by the wonderful names of Unknown and Forgotten, they were both in a band called Udegste, I think is how you say it. Udegste. Udegste? Not too sure. It's a tough one. And I said I wanted to check them out, so I did in my follow-up order. Here's the album here. Great silver embossed logo. We might go with Udegste. Udegste? I don't know, it's a tough one. They're a Netherlands 2-piece. This is their 2022 full length. I can barely say the band's name. I'm not going to say the album's name on this one. It starts with a Z, but it does translate to Black Magic Concoctions, and I'm more comfortable saying that. So, compared to Gargantua, this is far less angry sounding, a fair more musical approach to black metal, I think. There's a stronger feeling of Lunar Aurora, but with even more keyboards. Kind of chamber organ sounding, like it's very big, very loud, very filling sounding organ. And it's got a bit of a, I hate to say it, kind of like a happy and positive tone to that organ, like it bright, I suppose you could say. There's a fair bit of summoning in the sound here, but not enough to make you go, oh, this is a summoning clone. No, nothing anywhere near that, but I can hear that sound definitely in the music here. Maybe more so that sort of Stormblast era Dimmu Borgir. You know, that sort of mid-90s where there's a lot of keyboards. It's sort of in that wheelhouse, I guess. It's really, really, really strong stuff. Also, some of that vampiric or medieval sound that you might get from Abhor out of Italy, or more modern band like Krolock. Kind of all that kind of material is what you get out of Udegste. I don't know. Very mid-paced, very light feeling. You know, it's black metal, but it's kind of airy. It is very light feeling stuff, very crisp. It's got very snarled and swirling vocals to it, occasional sort of deep spoken passages. I think that was where some of that summoning isms came into it for me, that the spoken pieces. You know, it just had that feeling. It was kind of Lord of the Rings-ish, but, you know, I don't think that's really what they're going for. It just happened to have some of those similarities. Wonderful gatefold here. Here's the two members. There's Unknown and Forgotten, looking incredibly Frost. Unknown on all instruments and Forgotten on vocals, and yeah, it's out on New Era, and it's just a really nice presentation. I love all of this. Is all embossed text, and it's all in silver on top of it, so it's very, very appealing. And inside we just get black LP, and I don't think there was any lyrics or anything. No, that was it. That's your lot. So yeah, Udegste with an album that starts with Z but translates to Black Magic Concoctions. I'm really, really enjoying it, so check it out. This next one was a gap that I was very, very happy to fill in the collection. First time on vinyl pressing of this 2012 demo from Switzerland's Tardigrada. This is called Widerstand, I think is how you would say this one. This is fantastic. This was originally released in 2012 on a limited to 100 cassette run and a Pro CDR run, so it was very much a demo. 2012, people were doing CDRs, absolutely. And as I said, this is the very first time on vinyl, on record. This is put out by Eisenwald, who was pretty much, I'm sure, the label for the previous two album releases from Tardigrada. If you've never heard these guys, very depressive sounding, atmospheric black metal. Very emotional trem riffs played over sort of slower beats. That dominates most of the sound here on this demo. There are faster sections, but it is a slower, more atmospheric paced thing. I'd say comparisons to Walknut or Nyctalgia is probably a good one. Perhaps even, I like to bring it home every now and then. Australian bands like Austere, Woods of Desolation, that kind of stuff. That is definitely on this demo here, and generally Tardigrada as a whole is in that wheelhouse. So, dissonant minor chords, very drawn out stuff. Lots of ambient sounds. There's like ocean waves and water dripping in caves, all that kind of stuff. And the type of howl vocals that you would expect from DSBM. Very, very simple back there. All in Swiss writing there. They speak German, don't they, in Switzerland? Isn't that how it all works? I don't know. 4 tracks and an intro at nearly 38 minutes. It is quite a lengthy one. The final track here is listed as a bonus. On the original tape, I don't believe it was there, but in subsequent releases over the years, it's always had that track. So it makes it doesn't sound like it's a different, a different session or anything. It sounds just like a 4th track. So yeah, it's good to have it on here. Fills it out very nicely. It fits nicely. The side B opener on this one, which is 14 minutes itself, that is Einsamkeit. That is easily the most depressive track on the album here. It's very slow, very mournful. I'd say it's a bit of a standout track for this demo, and maybe not one that represents the band entirely, but it definitely represents this demo. The band have had a pretty limited output. I mentioned there was 2 albums, and that's pretty much it. We had this demo and 2 albums. The first one in 2016 and the most recent one in 2021. Both were excellent, highly recommended albums, and I know Ben Brainsmasher is a fan of Tardigrada, so take his word as well as mine that this band is definitely worth checking out. The demo here does not sound demo quality whatsoever. The tracks are not re-recorded on later albums, so given it's 38 minutes long and it doesn't sound like a demo, I could consider this album number 1. Like, there's nothing really here to say that it's not an album. Except for that the band called it a demo and initially released it on a tape and CDR run. So, as you wish, I suppose. But either way, I would suggest you pick it up. Everything from Tardigrada is great. The There's no problem with starting here. I would probably actually start though with the 2021 album. Don't know why I got it out. It's just black. Put the hype sticker on the inside. I tend to do this. If they come off neatly, I will take the hype sticker and put it on the inside of a plain sleeve. If they don't want to come off neatly, well, they get cut out, and then, you know, I put it in a new sleeve anyway, because I never liked the big baggy sleeves. You know, I'm going on a bit of a side rant here, but I like the Crystal Blake sleeves that come out there. They're much nicer. Anyway, Tardigrada, Widerstand demo album, 2012, highly recommended. Next one is a split release between two Australian bands. We have got here the split between Convulsing and Siberian Hell Sounds. What a great name. Convulsing I've talked about before on here. Siberian Hell Sounds was completely unknown to me until I found out about this release. I'll talk about the music first. This is an extremely brutal and fast, dissonant black metal side from Convulsing here. On their other albums I've talked about, that's definitely their style, but on this one, it's even more raw and just chaotic. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this came out just before or just after their second album, but it's around about then. I think it was 2018 that this came out, maybe 2019. But yeah, it has definitely got a slightly more raw production than Errata and Grievous, the albums. And it's just got added ferocity. This is just crazy. And it's one 21-minute track. So to keep up that fury for this length is quite something. And as I've mentioned before, Convulsing is a one-man band. This is Brendan Sloan, who is now the vocalist for Alters. He resurrected that band a couple of years ago. But Convulsing's always been his main single-man project. And this split is just completely nuts. I've listened to it 3 times through both sides so far, and it's just an onslaught, an absolute onslaught. If you're new to like dissonant death black metal, I don't know if you want to start here, because this is just nuts, absolutely crazy. It does have some variation. Around about a quarter of the way through this long track, so like 5-6 minutes in, it comes up for air and goes into sort of an ambient soundscape kind of arrangement. Then it goes into this sort of, I almost heard of this like lounge music, like that light jazzy drums and just minimal guitar, acoustic strings and things. I'm like, okay, we're definitely, we've played the song, we're going to have a smoke now, have a whiskey, and then we get back into it. And that happens like at least 2 more times, not into the lounge, but into that sort of, it takes a break, does a bit more of an ambient thing, just gets some air and then goes into it again and again. The sort of third time that happens, it's very much in that ulcerate style, which is a style that the band, you can do comparisons to on the albums. But it's just an absolute barrage of dissonance. It is absolutely mental. The blasting drums just don't stop. But yeah, there's ebbs and flows through this track where it just sort of, it heightens and then it decays, it heightens and it decays. And it's really quite a thing to listen to in one sitting. I've got to say, 21 minutes of just this chaos. Got to be in the right mood for it, absolutely. The other side, I'll show the other side of the LP at the same time, goes to Siberian Hell Sounds. Now, this is a band from Queensland, not one-man band. I think it might be 3 members. They open in a not too dissimilar way to Convulsing's side. In fact, they're actually listed as the first, they're the A side, Convulsing's the B side, but whatever. It's got a bit more of a tribal drums kind of intro, so you're thinking it might go down that kind of, I don't know, it's just that very, tribal sounding thing, like neurosis, I think that's the word I was looking for there. Vocals screaming in the distance, that kind of thing. I'm not too sure where we're going with this, but it builds to a point, and then it's just sort of Anal Nathrak style black grind, but less digital, real drums, not the synth drums that they use, and it's like as doubly as chaos as the Convulsing side. Is absolutely bananas. Absolutely bananas. Noisy is the word for this side, and again, hugely dissonant. Most of the members play in a sludge band called Resin Tomb, who I'm not too familiar with, but even just by knowing that they all play in a sludge band, you can actually hear that approach to what they're doing here in a black grind band. It's got that same style of very, very loose analog guitar, just very fuzzy, but played at 4 times the speed of a sludge band, 10 times the speed perhaps. Very loose, very visceral mix of sort of D beats, blast, chaotic, post-black metal, and lots of grinding parts. This release was also shown by good mate Jeff over at Medicant Media, and he argued that he didn't really hear the grind in it. It was kind of more chaotic black metal. And I reckon that's probably true. Like, there's a lot of these bands that have that black grind sound, which is particularly unique. And, you know, the grind isn't the grind that you would expect of your Napalm Death or anything. It's not like political grind or Nazem grind or anything like that. Really is more in that black metal chaos style, and the dissonance really just... It's so friggin' noisy. Did I mention that? My god. Anyway, I think it's kind of like an intentionally... And don't take this in a negative, but intentionally like unpleasant, noisy experience, I think. Both sides here, you're going to want to be in a mood to be smashed on the eardrums. Absolutely, when you're listening to this split. Convulsing in general, I think, is more of a sit down and listen band. But on here, like I said, it's more raw this time. And the Siberian Hell Sounds side is just absolute chaos. Absolute chaos. It is sounding like they have produced the sounds of hell. Why not? Why not? So we'll take a quick look inside. Luckily, yes, so this came from Brendan Sloan's Bandcamp. He must have found a handful of copies, and I picked one up, and then when I did that, I sent Jeff a message and said, looks like there's a few more copies floating around. And so he picked one up, and this is the sleeve on mine. So he got one as well. I'll link to his video, which had a unique text on it, and mine is also completely different to his. From mouths of deceit, venom spills forth. What? I'm not too sure what this one is. Something black filth, vested black filth. Not too sure. And then it's signed by Brendan there, 2023. So yeah, kind of cool. There's the Convulsing side, and in it we get nothing. We get nothing. We get nothing but the sounds of hell and chaos, and it's not going back in, so I'm not going to put it in for the moment. But there you go. Convulsing Siberian Hounds. Hell Sounds, not Siberian Hounds. Oh my god. It's nuts. Next one I'm going to take a look at is the debut demo on LP from Felvum. This is Full Moon Mysticism. A new project out of the Ukraine, featuring Crying Orc from the very popular Kekt Arak on guitars. And the other members of this band, listed here on the back, we have Wanya Mamikin, try that, from the band Mrtva Vod, who is a band I'm familiar with because Kekt Arak was promoting them, but I've not actually listened to that. I should check it out. He's on drums and bass, and also did the mixing for this recording. And there's an individual on here called Felnon who does the vocals, who, as far as I can tell, this is the debut release that he's been involved in. So there you go, that's who is in this. What do you get? You tell me. You look at the cover, you look at that color scheme, that logo, and this layout. You tell me what you think. You know, what do you think you're going to get? You get exactly what you're thinking you're going to get. You get a band that is playing black metal from 1995. That's exactly what you get here. This is total Transylvanian hunger worship. It doesn't have that sort of sad boy romantic edge that Kekt Arak does. This is as straightforward and as pure as 90s black metal can get. It is sharp. It has got repetitive riffs, very fast trem riffs over sort of a solid fast beat most of the time. Rasped vocals in like a Philosopheme style. Yeah, I mean, that sort of explains the first 3 tracks, but the fourth one here, which is Spell of... no idea, Spell of something, I can't read that font on the back. That's going more for that early Bertsom sound. The main riff on that was very clear descendant to Dunkelheit. I can hear that in there. This is obviously a very analog sounding thing, but you can hear every instrument very well balanced. The mix is really quite good for this style. And the bass guitar even has prominence, which, you know, if you do go back to Transylvanian Hunger and you think, oh, that's the most raw black metal ever, the bass is clearly audible in Transylvanian Hunger. It gets a rap for not being heard, but no, it's there. It's completely there. only 4 tracks, 14 minutes. This is quite short. The album repeats on both sides, so once you've listened to side A, flip it over and listen to it again on side B. Why not? It's just like a tape. There's very little else to say on this except for it rules. If you like that mid-90s black metal style, and you like it when modern bands do it, but it doesn't sound like an emulation, it sounds like a continuation, which is exactly what I get out of this. This does not sound like young kids trying to sound like the grandfathers. This sounds to me like it's just been transported back to the mid-90s, and I think that's why it works. There's a lot of bands that do this style, and it's clearly a recreation. This one's not black, so I will show you. Came on bone, sort of white. There's also a variant that was a split half black, half white, which might have been, I think that was 100, and the bone is 200 copies, something like that. It's quite a limited run. I'm not too sure if they're still around. Comes with a big poster, which, you know, I find that kind of funny. It's just the, well, I'm not going to fold it out, it's just the cover artwork. You know, this is your debut demo, and you've got this record that's got a poster as big as this wall in it. I find that amusing, but yeah, it's nice. Felvum, Full Moon Mysticism. So if you do like the Kektarak sound, and you want it with less roses and more gauntlets, well, check out Felvum with Full Moon Mysticism. Next up, we're going to talk about 2 albums from the same band, but I'm going to talk about them separately because they're actually quite different. The band we are talking about is Korgunthurus, and the first album here is the album Maras. This band has a long history. They've been around since about 2000. Was formed by Corvus, who at the time was in Horner. This is their first album. There's plenty of demos and things, but this came out in 2009, and that was around a time, if you think back, lots of bands were going into a style of more sort of depressive atmospheric black metal, that sort of, you know, DSBM, the suicidal black metal sound. There was a lot of that around that sort of 2006, 7, 8, 9 period. And this particular album is a good example of it. I'd say something like Canada's, and I've never been sure if it's a hard S or not, if it's Gris or Gris, the Quebec, I think, from Canada. Gris, we'll go with that. They're a good example of what I'm talking about here. They did an album in 2006 called, I think it was Neurastheni. There's a lot of similarities to that here. The first track on this one track, side A, is 22 minutes, and is a very repetitive and very depressive track. But it's got incredibly hateful vocals, just nasty vocals over those pretty depressive sounding riffs and drums. It's got some sporadic blasts and some bits of speed, but the side B on this one, which is slightly shorter, that one's a 16.5 minutes. That one is way more pained even. That is around the same speed. It doesn't have the fast sections. It opens with pained cries, sort of like Bethlehem, right? It's Bethlehem's another good example for this kind of style, particularly their sort of first 3. You know, Dictus Technicaire, bit in here for sure. Even more depressive and minimalist is what I'm saying for that second track on this one. More repetitive. It could even just be one riff. I think it's quite a long interchanged riff, but I think it's sort of the one that's played throughout the whole track. The vocals, yeah, definitely more twisted on this side, and just that anguish, that pain sound, absolutely. If you want to be in that DSBM mood, I think, for this album. Could be one to convince you of the style as well. I think this is Finnish black metal, so it's got that traditional Finnish harsh black metal edge to it. And if that's your approach, like you're coming off Horner and you're wanting something a bit more slower and sadder, this is probably a good starting point if you've never got into the DSBM subgenre before. This was a 2022 reissue out on Woodcut Records. Yeah, I believe it's remastered from the original release. I've never heard the original release. There you go. It's a nice fold out. And inside, I think it was just a black, very tough to get out. Yes, it's just a black LP. Pop that back in. Love the cover artwork painting on this one. I don't know who did it, but it kind of sums it up. It's cold, it's icy, The trees are dead, and there is a corpse in the river under the ice. That's Maras. That's this album. And it's a really good one. I've played this one through 3 times so far, and I've been really, really enjoying. It's DSBM, man. But I have been enjoying it. Really good stuff from Korgunthurus, Maras. And now we fast forward to 2020 for Korgunthurus' 3rd album. I don't have their 2nd. I would very much like it. But this is their 3rd and their, at this point, latest and last album. I have absolutely no intention on trying to pronounce the name here. It starts with a K. It's got L's in it. It's got the letter Y 3 times in the word. So I'm not even going to try. But it translates in English to stillborn. How you can turn that into stillborn is up to the finish. But anyway, this is a pretty different beast to Maras. It is faster. It is more violent. It is more direct. More dynamic drums is the first thing I noticed. Lots of double kicks in this one. Lots of toms. A bit more China use. Like it's just a bit more everything with the drums. And when I say direct, the opening riff on the first track definitely is an ancestor to Freezing Moon. So there was some mayhemisms in this. Definitely a more direct connection to Horner and the more traditional Finnish scene. Bands, Sargeist, Behexen, that kind of stuff. At this point, Corvus is no longer in Horner. His main band is Korgunthurus. It still retains that anguish and despair from Maras, and I think that's just the signature style of Korgunthurus. Even when they're playing in a bit more direct and shorter songs, there's 6 tracks on this one rather than 2. So they're, the tracks are more condensed, and there's, like I said, it's tighter and it's a bit more dynamic. But it still has that feeling of that DSBM and the atmospheric black metal sound in there. I think that's largely down to the lead guitars, which is what Corvus is playing. It continues to explore that depressive style, but in a condensed space. The rhythm has the more direct approach, and that's where I heard sort of the mayhem riffs on that opening track. Not so much as we go on, that could have just been a coincidence, but definitely what I heard. There's actually 3 guitarists credited on this album, and I think that is probably helping in the merging of all these styles at once. It's very melodic, but it is depressive. It's quite violent. It's all of these things at the same time. Melody, furiosity, and sadness all mixed together. Lyrically, it's the same as Maras. It's all in Finnish, so I have absolutely no idea what's really going on. Really nice artwork there. Those individual paintings for each track. I really enjoy that. Very nice. So a quick Google Translate, it kind of told me what I think is the general feeling for these albums. Is it's sort of misanthropic and death and just bleakness. That's Korgunthurus. It's death and decay, I think, is what we're going to with these guys. This is another 2022 release out on Woodcut, so hopefully you can still get copies of this one. Korgunthurus come highly recommended. It's a relatively new band for me. I'm not going to pronounce just on a black LP. It's a relatively new band for me, but now I'm pretty determined to get that 2nd album in the middle. And good stuff, Korgunthurus. Last one we're going to take a look at, and the OG record of this update. This one I've had for a little while and I just haven't shown it yet, but this is Atomkraft with Future Warriors. What a glorious cover this one is. 1985 UK band. They play a post sort of new wave of British heavy metal, getting more into the speed metal sound and very raw. There's a lot of venom in this sound. There's a lot of Motorhead. That's pretty obvious. I'd say, like some comparisons to very early Canada's Exciter. That's the kind of stuff you're getting with Atomkraft, and I learnt something that Atomkraft is the German word for basically nuclear power, and I think that's fantastic. Atomkraft, so good. This is there's not much to really say because it's just straight ahead, fun, raw, and pretty loose heavy metal. We got 4 tracks on side 1. One of them's called Total Metal, which is just outstanding. Side 2's got another one called Pour the Metal In. These guys are so into their metal. War Zones, Burn in Hell, Heat and Pain. I mean, they're not wimping around here. Look at these guys. Like, there's full Judas Priest looks going on here. There's a toxic mask there. It's just studded belts. And it's just metal. We are a friggin' heavy metal band. It's so good. The Future Warriors? ? Great stuff. Like I said, 1985. Now, I already had this this compilation LP that I got a couple of years ago, which was a really nice find. I think it was a Polish LP, and it was the split of I think it's the Queens of Death EP, and I can't remember, there's another two EPs from around the same time, and it was reissued just as Atomkraft. That was really good. I've been playing that for a couple of years now. I'm really enjoying it. But this is their only actual full-length album, Future Warriors. So yeah, not too sure why. There's a lot of demos in there. There's a couple more EPs. They did seem to get back in the 2000s, the 2010s, and do a newer EP, I think. I have not heard that. But this album's fantastic. Really is just what you want. Straight ahead, rough, loose, British heavy metal. And this one's out on Roadrunner. So I'll show you the old LP. Upside down, but there you go. Roadrunner. Quite a nice, I'd say, very strong VG plus on that one. And yeah, the record covers have been partied on. There's someone's taken a sticker off or something. It doesn't matter. I've never really cared too much about that. As long as it's not falling to pieces and is generally representative of the album, I'm okay with a dinged up cover when it comes to 80s pressings. It adds to the charm. As long as the record is good, that's what matters. And it really is. It sounds great, and it's a great album from Atomkraft. So yeah, Future Warriors. If for some reason you never checked these guys out and you like that loose Venom, even a bit of Satan, that their first album, and of course the Motorhead style, you're gonna like Atomkraft. So yeah, check it out, Future Warriors. And that is this update. 8 records we talked about today. Hope you enjoyed. The links to listen to these things will be in the description below, so go check them out. Also, in the meantime, make sure you like, subscribe, check out this thing, and I'll see you next time.